Welcome back, y'all. Ryan Hall here with the weather forecast. We have no shortage of new information regarding our upcoming storms today, so I am not going to waste your time here, and we're going to jump right into talking about the weather. All right, here's a big old look at the latest warnings and watches from the National Weather Service. And as you can see, there's only two different colors on the map here. They're both winter related. If you're in the blue, you're under a winter storm watch, and if you're in the purple here, you are under a winter weather advisory. Now, these advisories up here are associated with a clipper that's going to come in through the Pacific Northwest here in the next little bit, and we're going to see some snow in Montana all the way down through Denver and then into the Great Lakes regions from that. But these watches and advisories down here in the south are a little bit more of an anomaly, and they are associated with the main topic of today's video, which is going to be that next upcoming storm. Let's start talking about all that on the weather models. All right, we're going to start off zoomed in over here on the eastern portion of the U.S., looking at the NAM 3-kilometer model. This is going to show us what the radar could look like as we go into the future, and as always, that time and date's going to be constantly above my head there. Around noon today, we're going to see showers and a couple thunderstorms pop up ahead of our cold front here from Kentucky all the way back into Oklahoma and Texas. This is associated with that big blast of cold air that we talked about in the last video. It's going to convect up a pretty good amount of heavy rain for a lot of people in the eastern and southeastern portion of the U.S. The further south you go down here, we could actually be talking about severe weather, which we will hit on that more here in a second. We're going to focus on the snow though, because we love snow around here. Well, you might not, but I do. And here in Kentucky where I live, we might be getting in on some of that snow late tonight into early tomorrow morning. So this is a little bit of a tricky forecast because a lot of times whenever that cold air has to chase the convection that is dependent on the warm air, we end up getting a little bit more rain than what these models usually forecast. However, the precipitation rates can actually be a little bit increased, so sometimes they overperform. But we're definitely going to see some heavy snow breaking out across West Virginia along the I-64 corridor around 4 a.m. And then that snow is going to traverse and break out through the I-95 corridor between DC all the way up to Boston between 8 and 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I do think that travel is going to be pretty treacherous out there if you're going to be on the roads during that time, because even though we're not talking about a huge amount of snow, it's going to come down fast, and we're going to be talking about a flash freeze. So remember, as this cold front comes in on the front side, everybody's seeing rain, right? But whenever that cold front comes through, we switch over to snow, and a lot of us are dropping like literally 15 degrees in a couple of hours. And all of that rain that falls and any snow, the initial snow that melts on impact, is going to really quickly freeze on the roadways, especially bridges and overpasses and stuff. And that makes me concerned even more than the snow totals about how dangerous the roads are going to be and stuff like that. Certainly going to be slick out there in the morning, even in places a little bit further south where we're not expecting a lot of snow. Look at Nashville there. We're at 46 degrees this evening, but early tomorrow morning when you're on your way to work, it's going to be 26 degrees. So any of that moisture that's compiling is going to freeze, and I'm calling that a flash freeze. So be careful out there tomorrow. And on top of all that, we could see a couple of inches of snow. I wouldn't be surprised at all if DC got 2 or 3 inches. Some places on Long Island all the way up into Cape Cod, you guys could see a couple of inches. And of course, a lot of eastern Kentucky and West Virginia is going to see a couple inches. Some of you guys are probably going to get more than 2 or 3, but a broad stroke of 1 to 3, maybe 4 inches is mainly what we're talking about here. All right, as if that wasn't enough, down here a little bit further to the south, we're not talking about sleet, we're not talking about ice, we're not talking about snow, we're talking about severe weather again here on January 19th. The Storm Prediction Center does have that slight risk of severe weather out today with a 15% chance of damaging winds and even a 5% chance or a 2% chance, of tornadoes down there in Texas and Louisiana. Let's watch the timing on that, and as you can see, around 8 p.m., 6 to 8 p.m. this evening, we're going to see some storms pop up down here along that cold front, and they are going to increase in intensity and coverage all the way through 5 or 6 a.m. And so for pretty much a 10-hour period here, we're going to be talking about severe weather in the deep south. And of course, remember, even if you're outside of that severe weather threat over here in Mississippi into Alabama, we are going to be talking about some strong winds and maybe even some flash flooding over here too with all that heavy rain. So looking at the dynamics behind this thing, there's not a lot that's like blowing me away. There's not a lot of nadir juice out here. Our significant tornado parameter does come up a little bit here around 4 or 5 p.m. But if we compare that with our reflectivity, we're not going to see a lot of convection during this time. Now that could mean either one of two things. Either there's not going to be any storms that takes advantage of the favorable conditions for tornadoes, or there's going to be one that pops up and takes advantage of all of those conditions and does produce a tornado. So even though this is a small scale event down here in Texas and Louisiana, I want everybody to be weather aware tomorrow. This is not going to be a widespread tornado outbreak, but the chance for some damaging winds winds and tornadoes is going to be there with y'all, and I want you to be safe. Don't be scared, be prepared. All right, so after tonight into tomorrow, immediately after that, we are going to be talking about another big storm that could cause some widespread big-time impacts from the south all the way back into the southeast. So let's talk about the dynamics behind that. First of all, we got a weird split jet streak over here in the west that's kind of pulling down a little bit of extra polar energy and a little bit of that subtropical energy. And the models suggest that all of that's going to kind of collapse on itself here and become one big giant positively tilted trough in the central and eastern portion of the United States. And that is going to lead to a big opportunity for a new low pressure center to form over here, either in the Gulf or off the coast of the Carolinas, or both. And this is going to lead to, once again, our next big storm that we're talking about. This is a very dynamic setup, and there's a lot of different possibilities that could come out of this. And once again, just like our last storm, the models are having a real hard time nailing down exactly what's going to happen, but we are getting close enough to where we have a very good idea now. Okay, let's pop the hood on our atmosphere here and look at it from the top down on the temperature, so I can show you one of the big pieces of the puzzle here that we're trying to figure out. So right now we're looking at the air temperature in Celsius at the 700 millibar level, which we will just call the upper level of the atmosphere for the sake of this video. And the reason we're using Celsius is because it's so easy to find the freezing line in Celsius, because it actually makes sense. And as you can see, this yellow line here that I've drawn at the upper level atmosphere layer, anything south of that is going to be like rain in the atmosphere, and anything north of that is going to be frozen precipitation like snow. So let's go down to the mid levels. Okay, this is the 850 millibar layer, and as you can see, that freezing line goes back a little bit here. Okay, so even though any precipitation in the upper levels of the atmosphere beyond this yellow line is frozen, it is melting once it gets into the space between the blue line and the yellow line. Okay, are you following along? So we've talked about the upper levels and the mid levels. Now let's go down to the surface and look at the temperature there in Celsius as well. And looky here, our freezing line kind of comes down and inverts with our mid-level freezing line. Okay, so you've got snow in the upper levels of the atmosphere there in South Carolina, and then in the mid-levels we have rain, and then on the surface it should be snow, but it doesn't have time to turn back into snow, so it's going to fall there between the red line and the blue line. It's going to fall as sleet or freezing rain, and this is once again the big story with this particular storm. So by the way, there's a couple places down here in Louisiana and Texas that are approaching that freezing line where we could also see some of that freezing rain and sleet as well. And that's the explanation for our winter storm watch down here in Texas. Look at this, man. We've got snow in Mexico. We've got a bunch of freezing rain from Corpus Christi all the way over to Alice. Some of you guys could see up to a quarter inch of ice, which will cause problems on Friday into Saturday. Look at this. Even Houston could see a little bit of ice. But the most concerning part of this storm is going to be over here on the East Coast. All right, continuing to look at the NAM 12 kilometer here. We're going to put this into motion and quickly show you the precipitation type and the surface map. You can see there's a little bit of mixing going on down here on the Gulf Coast, but I really don't think that's going to amount to a whole lot. The big deal is going to happen over here, once again, in South Carolina and North Carolina, maybe even all the way to the shore with that potential for freezing rain and a lot of sleet. Remember, we got that big trough back here. We're going to see that little bit of a circulation pop up here. This is what's aiding in this overrunning process where we see the snow and the ice expand here. There's going to be a big precipitation shield that will slide off to the north and east. Looks like some of the heaviest precipitation might actually fall too between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. on Saturday, which makes this a little bit of a different scenario than what we saw earlier. Usually when wintry precipitation falls at night, it's a little bit more likely to cause problems because you don't have to worry about the sun and the radiation from the sun interfering with melting stuff and interfering with your surface temperatures as much. So I really do think we're going to see some significant ice down here in the Carolinas, especially given the fact that, you know, they're not used to that kind of ice. And then according to this model, things are going to start getting out of here midday on Saturday. But that's just one model. Let's take a look at the Euro now. That changeover from rain to snow is going to happen around 1 p.m. on Friday. That precipitation is going to expand with that new circulation or new swirl over here. And according to the Euro, this is a little bit more amped. It's a little bit more energized, and we get a little bit more snow over here and cold air on the backside. This is also going to be a very tricky one to forecast because it's another one of those situations where the cold air is chasing the warm air, and the warm air is what we are dependent on for the convection. Now, once again, there's more than one model, so let's just put them right next to each other, son, and start comparing the Euro and the GFS now. What we're looking at here is our first shot of snow that we're talking about tonight into early tomorrow morning. Now let's see what it's showing with our next little roundup. I can already tell tell you that the Euro over here on this side is, once again, it's more amped and it's more impressive than what the GFS is showing. The Euro leads to a much more impactful storm. The GFS is kind of like, whatever. But they both produce ice and snow for a lot of people there in the Carolinas. Look at this, though. I can't believe that, we're only 75 hours out, and there's this much discrepancy in our two main models. These are supposed to be our big boys, okay? In America here, we pay taxes for the GFS. I don't know how you pay for it over there in Europe, but I mean, Lord goodness, guys, let's get it together. Help me out here and get Elon Musk on this thing or something to make it a little bit better. I don't know. No, but for real, there's always going to be some discrepancy, but you can see here that the story's pretty much the same. There's going to be a storm, there's going to be some ice, there's going to be some snow over here on the East Coast, but there's the one option is that it's not going to be a very big deal at all, and then another option is that, hey, maybe it's time to go get your milk and bread. Let's look at those freezing rain totals now, okay? This is from our first little shot. We're not going to worry about that. I don't think that's going to amount to anything. What we're focused on is over here in the Carolinas. The Euro is showing kind of like a worst case scenario here where some people could maybe see over 3/4 of an inch of ice. As always, I got to mention that would be a catastrophic ice storm. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but the possibility is there. A more realistic approach comes from the GFS model where we have less ice and also it's a little bit further suppressed to the south, okay? This still puts down 1/4 of an inch of ice to 1/2 inch of ice here from the beaches of Myrtle Beach all the way up into the southern areas of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's still a very significant ice storm, especially for this area. You guys can't handle snow, and ice is, it's a lot worse. So even the GFS with its more conservative outlook still shows a pretty impactful storm down here. It's not the end of the world, but it's certainly going to cause some problems. And if we look at the NAM model, once again, man, over 1/2 inch of ice, some places seeing over an inch of ice down here in extreme southeastern portions of North Carolina. I hope this isn't what happens. I don't think it is, but once again, that is an opportunity. That is an option on the table here. And then last but not least, if we look at the Canadian, this is another little bit more of a conservative run here. We're talking about 1/4 of an inch of ice to maybe 1/2 an inch of ice for a lot of southeastern South Carolina into eastern portions of North Carolina. And I like this, okay? If I had to pick one, I would pick this one for my forecast. Once again, not the end of the world here, but could definitely cause power problems and a lot of travel issues there this weekend in South Carolina and North Carolina, so make sure you're prepared for that. And then very briefly, I know a lot of you guys are concerned about the snow totals. We're going to touch on this a lot more tomorrow, but for now we're going to look at the forecast database, which is very conservative, but still shows a broad area of 3 to 6 inches of snow for a lot of northern North Carolina into the Virginia Beach area and the southern Delmarva. All right, switching back over here to our swirly things model on the Euro. Are we ever going to get a break here, okay? Are we done with the storms after this one? No, absolutely not. Look at this big trough. This thing right here is going to cause its problems this weekend. Right behind that, we have 2 more pieces of energy that could potentially cause storms. Now, I mentioned the other day in the video that I saw 9 potential storms down the road between, now and like early February 3rd or something like that. When I talk about these 9 opportunities, I mean that there's literally 9 chances. There's 9 of these little swirly things, these little pieces of energy that are going to come through and interact with different portions of different jet streams and our different height anomalies and stuff like that. And, I'm just saying, if I was a betting man, I would place some money on the fact that one of these 9 pieces of energy, if not more of them, is going to kick off and produce, another major storm, because it's not often that we get this much opportunity and energy sliding through our neck of the woods in conjunction with all of the other parameters that we have in place to produce these storms. It's not going to be a never-ending winter. There's not going to be a bunch of blizzards. I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm just showing you all the cool weather stuff here, man. Come on, it's fun. And speaking of one of these opportunities actualizing into a real, storm down the road, our deterministic models, including the Euro here, have continued to show this happening. First of all, we've got this opportunity as we get into the January 25th time frame for a low to form down here in the Gulf and then come across the southeastern portion of the U.S. and potentially bring another round of severe weather to Florida. Now, this is pretty far out, so, there's still an opportunity for this thing to even come up the coast and cause a big snowstorm, or there's a potential for this to just completely die out. But right now, we're thinking that this is the most likely scenario. And then directly behind that, another big trough comes together and a big storm forms over here for the East Coast. Once again, this is on Friday, January 28th. We're out way far into La La Voodoo land. This is not what's going to happen no matter what Mr. Hype Facebook says. However, it's just another indication that my inkling that we're going to stay in this very active pattern is correct. And you guys know me, I'm at least sometimes correct. The biggest shout out ever here to our members. I couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Once again, I've created 2 new channels, Ryan Hall Y'all Shorts and Ryan Hall Y'all Clips. If you guys want to check that out, go subscribe to them. Speaking of stuff you can't see here on this YouTube channel, I posted this cute little clip of my son Echo this morning on Twitter. It's his first birthday today, so everybody say happy birthday to Echo. And go follow me on Twitter. Lord goodness, son, what do I got to do here? I don't know why, but I feel like that worked last time, so I'm going to try it again. All right, I'll see ya. Goodbye.